Hey, everybody. This is part 2 of assignment number 9. In this assignment, we're going to look a little bit at voting results from the 113th Congress. We'll eventually end up in how the bodies voted, but I want to start a little bit. I want to start here with some of these results because they are really interesting as we look at our first chart here. What we're looking at is hour of the day and voting results. This one is vote passage. So look at this map as these are all the votes that are all the passing votes during times of the day. So what's interesting about this, and we'll flop back and forth because this next chart here is vote failures at time of the day. So what we want to look at here is 2 o'clock, right? Here's our biggest hour of the day with vote passages. 2 o'clock, 348 vote passages. Now, if we go to failures at 2 o'clock, there's a lot less. If we go to, say, the second highest here would be 6 o'clock. You go over here to the vote failures at 6 o'clock, it's pretty low. Let's do the corollary of that. The highest vote failures at 5 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock, not as high. So it's interesting as we look at these, and obviously the beginning and the ends of the day are not as much. I'm guessing that these vote passages and vote failures up here are probably bills that are trying to be pushed through at the last minute, things like that. But interesting as we flip back and forth and look at these, that 11 o'clock, there's 204 vote failures. At 11 o'clock, there's only 78 vote passages. So you wonder what the ebb and flow of people in Congress is. When people are in their seats, when everybody's voting, and we'll get to abstentions in a minute, but how voting takes place in the ebbs and flows and rhythms of what that might look like. Month and passages of votes. Again, same thing here. So we're going to have vote passages and vote failures. Vote passages here. We look at our highest is October, right? So let's go to October and vote failures. Only 48. Really interesting. June is our highest vote failure month. Let's go to June. Not as high. So it's interesting to look at how these ebb and flow, right? August, there's not a lot of vote passages. And it looks like August was even excluded from this failure. So there maybe, those that August is kind of a layoff date for them, maybe something like that. But June, July, definitely the summer months are the biggest vote failures. And then October and July were biggest vote passages. So interesting as we look at the ebbs and flows of how this might work. Time of day. Now, time of day and vote abstention. This is really interesting. Look at this, 2 o'clock. You had 738 abstentions for 2 o'clock. I wonder why that is. Could be because there were more votes during that time. So the sheer number of votes happening and people abstaining could be a reason. Again, 11 o'clock has a pretty high one, 2 o'clock. And then 5 through 7, again, if we go back here to vote passages, there you go, 6 and 7 had some really high counts. And then we go to time of day, again, 6 and 7 have some really high counts, but 2 o'clock is by far the highest when our highest vote passage was. So interesting, why someone would choose to abstain. There's a myriad of reasons. I'm sure they're complex, but we have to calculate that into why someone didn't vote for the passage of something and when that happened. So month abstentions, again, we look at August. August seems to be a really low month with all these votes. But again, October was pretty high. July was pretty high, very high. July was our highest. June was our second highest. So, you wonder why people are abstaining in the summer. And then maybe lower in August. Maybe there's lower total votes in August. Could certainly be that. So this tree map is just a representation of passage and failure votes and yes and no votes from the House of Representatives and the Senate. As you can tell, the Senate, just sheer number wise, had much less, over 1 million items here for the House of Representatives, and only somewhere around 60,000 for the Senate. So, it has to be sent from one to the other. So this is just an interesting representation of kind of the differences when bills are getting passed around from one to the other, and what they vote no on, what they vote yes on. So if you look at the Senate, not passed was 19,000, in the House, just much bigger. And so opportunity for more there. So interesting results as we look at this, to kind of look at these different kinds of maps and what they show us, I think can really illuminate some things that we might not see in other types of visualizations. So these are really helpful in especially this 113th Congress voting, to kind of see, again, the ebbs and flows of what happened. So that's part two. And we'll do part three in a minute. Thanks.